Welcome back to the Berg Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And we are talking about technology. So a couple episodes ago, we had Kelly in here. Kelly was on her way out. And one of the interesting things she said that was how much the technology has changed, even in the short time she had been here, which kind of struck me, right? Because, Kelly and I worked together for about 8 years. And 8 years doesn't seem like, it's a long time, but it doesn't seem like an eternity. And how much does technology really change? And it sort of got me thinking, construction is generally regarded as a low-tech industry, I think. But I don't know that that's an accurate reputation, right? Would you agree?
Or slow to adopt. That might be another way that we do it. And, I've been doing this for a while. And when you mentioned this to me, I was thinking,
how long's a while? We're going on year 20, right?
Yeah,
20
this
here,
20 here plus
a couple before that. Right.
My first time on a job site, I was 2 weeks old, so I guess that means
okay. So so a lot longer than 20, but
with the company, 20 years.
Yeah,
and so it got me thinking about like how we did things, even just 20 years ago,
right?
And we have some team members that were doing this much longer than that, and they probably even remember other things, but. I was going to start with just the fact that something so basic now that younger team members might not quite grasp it, but email, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still remember I had a phone, and I think it was before we started this company, but I got this thing called a BlackBerry.
Sure, yeah.
Because I was working for a lot of engineers, and I was out in the field, and they would send emails about something to my email address, which at that point you would check on your computer at night or whenever you're around a computer. That's the only way you got the email.
Yeah. I remember my first email address, it probably was something stupid.
Say something stupid or offensive at AOL.com, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think, I'm trying to remember. I was probably in high school when I got my first email address, but I think it was just so that I could have instant messenger or something like that on the computer, it wasn't something that I actually intended to use for communication.
No, I remember going through, I probably should have, it'd been fun to actually keep track of all the different email addresses I've gone through over life. But, the first one were the free ones you got with whatever. I'm that old that they used to send you disc to your house to say, hey, sign up for our internet service. And you had to download a disc onto your desktop at home. Right. That was the family computer. So that was one of the first one, the email thing. Now most of our team members have emails. Most of them have smartphones that they're getting their communication to them instantaneously.
Yeah, the BlackBerry is a funny one because when at least when I started using, I don't even know if it was a BlackBerry. It was called
Trio.
The Trio.
Do you have a Trio or the Palm Pilot?
I had the Trio. Yeah, exactly. And when I started using that thing, it weighed as much as a brick. Mm-hmm. And
no color, probably.
Yeah, all black and white. I thought that, and I had upgraded to the Trio from a flip phone or something like that, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world because it had access to the internet, and it's like an analog version of the internet. You actually don't see anything; it's just text images or.
But you're probably very cautious not to use much of it because you paid. Right. At that point, so when I first got my first cell phone, you had a almost area code that you could use your phone in. If you called a number outside that, you paid extra. If you were outside that area, you paid extra. And now it's just unlimited, pretty much just carte blanche. But back then it was you have 2 counties that you can be in to use this phone. If you want to pick a different area, then you go to there. But that's another thing that's changed drastically in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and data, right? So, I think just to check an email consumed all of my data allowance back then. But I thought it was the coolest thing when I got it because all of a sudden you could do that stuff from your phone.
Isn't it amazing how they got us to chain ourselves to something, and at first it was the coolest thing on earth, and now some of us are oh man, there's days I threaten to go back to a flip phone because
right.
I tell people all the time, younger people in particular, those things, they actually make phone calls too. They don't just, that's just not their mode of communication any longer.
Well, yeah, it's crazy. I talk about this with my kids. My kids, like I thought it was funny when text messaging starting to become an acceptable form of communication, right? And I say acceptable because I think
Still not for certain things.
yeah, it's still not the right form of communication for certain things, that's for sure. But I thought texting, for a long time was like didn't make a lot of sense. Like what I could just pick up the phone, right? I'm just going to call you and tell you what I need to tell you. And if you're not available, then we'll talk later, right? And now that in the text world, when that became like an acceptable form of communication, I was like, oh, why wouldn't you send a text, right? Like I don't need to interrupt you with a phone call, or you can respond when you're at your convenience or when you're available. And my kids never text. They don't make phone calls. They don't text. Everything is done through like some other form of social media, whether it be like Instagram direct messages or group chats or
so it's text, but it's not text to another phone number. It's text to a name that's right. I mean, it's still like typing on a phone device, but it's not a traditional. Like if you scroll through their text messages, it's probably you and your wife.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Like other family
grandparents,
members, right? Yeah, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Yeah, work related stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's not actually how they communicate with their friends at all. So.
Well, and then another thing I was thinking about is a PDF, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's, not a new thing per se, but so when I started, like the word blueprint, nobody understands it anymore because the prints are all white paper.
Yeah. Right.
But a blueprint was a copy of something.
Right.
And so nobody had printers for that. You had to go to special stores to get a copy of a print, and they ran it through, and then you got a printout that was in blue because it was a copy. Or you had to usually run to the client's facility because they only had one set, and so you were there to do the takeoff at their property because they didn't just send you a PDF of a new update. You had to like go there because they just didn't disseminate it digitally. And then when I first started, takeoffs. So like we come up with quantities of materials. To figure out how much we're going to move, dirt, things of that nature. Well, it used to be done by a grid. So you take a set of plans and you would do 1 by 1 inch grids across the whole plan. And then each grid, you would have to figure out what the change in elevation was. And then you would make that math across the entire thing. Nowadays, there's CAD, there's Insight, all these things. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. That speed up that particular piece of the process. Exponentially. I mean, before you'd work on a set of prints for maybe 2-3 weeks just getting all the information off of the prints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now,
what's it take? Yeah, how long does it take to do a takeoff now?
It depends on the quality of the data. Blah, blah, blah. But I mean, if everything's correct, it's like you hit a button and it magically. I mean, maybe an hour or two, depending on what it is.
Yeah, and like someone who's proficient at it, right? I'm not good at Bluebeam or CAD, so it probably would still take me 3 weeks. Right. But I think someone who's proficient at it can do it in a significantly shorter period of time.
Now, on an estimate, that is not the time draw that it used to be. That used to be the biggest piece of the draw. Now it's vendors and things like that. Then another piece.
Funny, it's still the communication piece,
yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. But then back at that point, like the beginning of the year, you'd get all your vendors to send you a price list of all their stuff. So you didn't really have to contact them each time for each job. You basically like, okay, I need this much of this. They already told me the price and it was done. Mm-hmm. Then another thing that still gets used a little bit in the field, but is the engineer's scale.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's how we used to take everything off. So I'd walk around. I used to have like a little bag I carried with me for things. And it had an engineer's scale in it, and then it had an architect's scale in it, because everything was it looks like a ruler for people that don't know, but it has different sizes on it. It's usually 3-sided, and you can flip it to based on the scale of the plan.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was younger, my dad was an engineer, and so we had those. Excuse me, we had those
floating around.
Yeah, we had those at home, and I always just thought they were like just funny rulers, right? I didn't know they were scales. So if I needed a ruler, I'd be like flipping the sides to find the one that actually... You
need the 1-inch one. You didn't need the tenths or the 1 to 40.
Like, who uses these measurements? Like, nobody needs this. But my dad was like, no, this is like actually really important information.
Well, and then I remember because we used to use those scales, and then I don't know, probably it may be a long time ago, but I remember when I got the first one. There's these DigiPens, they're called, and it's a little roller wheel that would do it for you. You set the scale, and then you could roll things off, and instead of having to sit there with you, and especially if you had like a curved line, you could follow it and follow your lengths. Because before, again, you would take that scale, which is a straight line, a piece of metal usually or plastic, and you had to kind of like do these little sectionals to get the curve, where now you had this little DigiPen, you roll it around the other end, read the other side, it says 142 feet. You say, okay, 142 feet, whereas didn't have that before. Now, they click a couple buttons on the computer, it tells them 142 feet, and they're off to doing something else.
Yeah, and that's actually, well, at least internally, it doesn't feel like that was that long ago, right? I mean,
I still have one on my desk.
I was just gonna say, is we were
5, buying them a couple years ago.
I was still buying them. Yeah. Interesting.
So that's on the back end of everything.
Right.
Another thing is, everything is so condensed now that we'll probably talk about the same thing multiple times, but it's because everything is condensed to the iPad or the iPhone. Like there's, there used to be this thing called the Green Book of Construction.
What was that?
So that was basically a daily log for a job or for a thing, right? We used to have them. I think Bear, we used to use them back in the day.
Yep.
Ed used them, people like that. But basically, it was a journal for the job. It was actually a journal for the year, but you would write down the weather. You'd write down like who was on the job. You'd write down what inspectors came out. You write down what you completed every day, and you just kept this log. It was actually good in court, actually, because if you actually used it every day, you could use it as a reference point for a court case if it ever came to that. But that was how you documented everything that you did. There was no pictures because nobody had an iPhone or smartphone, so it was all just basically the written record of what happened.
Your notes, your record of what actually occurred.
Right.
Yeah.
Now the guys push a button on their phone or their iPad, pulls up an app, they type in what they did that day, they take some pictures so that we have some visual evidence of it, and it gets sent remotely back to the office. Yeah,
and a lot of times it's the same. Right, we do it in the same software we do to capture time cards, right? So they're marking down their personnel who was there, the number of hours that they were there,
the time they
started, what cost codes they may have been working on for how long, quantities, and then a journal of what occurred, what happened, pictures of change, progress, problems, whatever it might be. Yeah.
So I remember this story is not something we did, but it was a big company back in the day. If you got hired as a foreman or superintendent, you got a fax machine. That was part of your onboarding process back then. They didn't call it that.
Yeah.
And every day you had to take that green book or write up, fax it to the office when you got home at night. By the next morning, they had people back there running stuff. You would get back a response of you hit your targets, didn't hit your targets, things of that nature.
Right.
Because with that system that we use, it also shows the expectations that the estimator created for that project.
Right.
So you can check it and be, hey, are we hitting our targets, not hitting our targets, things like that.
Right.
Old days, you didn't have that. So you said, hey, I hauled 142 loads today. You shipped it into the office. They had cost accountants back there working, I guess, second shift or third shift. By the time you got up in the morning at 4 or 5 a.m., it was saying, hey, you didn't go fast enough. You need to speed up or you're hitting your targets. And that's how they literally ran projects, because we are such a decentralized business that was the communication style.
Right. Yeah.
Another thing that we actually still use a little bit of, but not to the way that they did, was radios versus, because they didn't have cell phones.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Two-way radios.
Two-way radios. Right.
Yeah. They were in everybody's trucks.
Mm-hmm. And TVs and just two ways.
Both, depending on what it was. But I know that another company that we used to do when my dad was working, we were sub to them. They had the actual two-way radios.
Yeah.
But that was only in the foreman truck, and the foreman truck communicated back to the office for things or to the dispatch and things of that nature.
Right.
And then at one point, it was probably it was 14 or 15 were working on a job. They would get a job trailer, which we don't even really use anymore. Everybody just uses their truck. And they would run a phone line from the street, and there'd be an actual landline
at the trailer.
Wow.
Hmm.
So if you needed something, you had to run up to the trailer, make the phone call, come back out, and go back and forth to that trailer.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, like, was that just for, I would assume, longer duration projects? They would actually run a phone line, or
Yes.
yeah.
Because we talk about it a lot, just in general, like conversation with different peers and different things. Like in the old days, there was a lot more creativity allowed to the field because you didn't have, sometimes we get frustrated at times because our guys are trying to move forward, and then now there's an inspector on the site checking the job. He doesn't have authority to make the call. The engineer doesn't have authority to make the call. Nobody can make the call and just keep the project moving forward because now there's 22 emails that have to go out, a redesign. Where in the old days, if you had work to get done, you had to figure out how to get it done, and you just kept going
Right.
and moving forward. From my perspective, is in the field compared to sometimes now we go forward, just go backwards. It seems just because there's the benefit of the speed, but sometimes if things don't happen that quickly, then you're kind of getting stopped. You're kind of like
Right.
in traffic. You're moving forward, stopping, moving forward, stopping.
Is that one of the, maybe, like, if you were making a pros and cons list, is that one of maybe the cons of having so much information?
Yes. I think it's also like with the PDF.
Sure.
I think in the old days, they would not say they thought through it more, but they would, like, you didn't make change the plans as easily as they do now.
Okay.
Like, you didn't just keep revising them and just, because now all you got to do is click one button and it's sent out to everybody.
Right.
So you can revise a set of prints constantly. But back then, if you thought about it, the architect or engineer drew the plans, then they had to send it to the client who has to approve it. Usually it's the same set of prints, and then it had to be sent to the builder. So they didn't want to make a lot of changes because that process would have created roadblocks.
Sure.
Now in 5 minutes, everybody gets it, and then it just becomes, I remember the one job we just did, there was like revision 22 of a set of prints that would have never happened previously.
Sure. Yeah.
It would just be a red line drawing at the end. Okay, this is what we actually did. Thank you very much. Move on.
Yeah. Here's the final version. It's not the same as the proposal, but it's what works, and it's what everyone agreed to.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about like that handheld, the office technology. I think maybe in some of that I was used to, right? Because of coming from different industries, I feel like computers and some of the smartphones have been maybe more heavily relied on for a little while longer. What is interesting to me, or I feel like the biggest changes, or at least coming kind of like big leaps and jumps, were some of the equipment technology.
Well, that's the big one that I think gets the glossy, like, oh my goodness, GPS, and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. And, I think that's leading the forefront where all these other things, while they are just as important and as functional, they just don't have the glamour that GPS and, it's not even GPS, but diagnostics of equipment. This morning I woke up, whatever time, and I had 3 emails overnight telling me that a piece of equipment soon needs to be serviced or that there was a error on a piece of equipment.
Right.
In the old days, there's none of that.
Right.
Not sure if it's beneficial or not, but it's like, it helps, the shop and gym be able to schedule things and that kind of nature. But before, there was like, you wrote down how many hours the machine had. You checked it like once a month. We used to have this thing called Mega Hour Monday that was a Ed creation that like once a month, everybody would have to call in every piece of equipment on their job site and how many hours were on that machine.
Right. Yeah.
Now we can open an app or whatever and find out that
and some
information.
of that was to track service intervals.
Right.
Right.
That's mainly what it was for.
Yeah. But you didn't necessarily know, besides tracking service intervals, you didn't necessarily know the machine wasn't telling you something was going wrong.
No.
Until something actually happened, you might not have known it needed a specific wear part or service or something of that nature.
No, at that point, you were usually just going out and investigating or trying to get them back through the shop once in a while just to take a look at them or maybe clean them or to check the different things on it.
Right.
Now, basically, it's trying to self-diagnose issues.
Yeah, and in hopes that you can sort of schedule the downtime instead of it causing downtime, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can say, all right, well, it's not disabled, but we need to get it into the shop to do X, Y, and Z because we got these early indicators that something's happening. you can hopefully schedule that downtime and have a replacement machine there instead of the machine going down and interrupting production.
The other thing that unfortunately didn't happen for us was one machine the other year, but you're hoping to catch small things so they don't turn into a large thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, changing a filter is much more cost effective and time effective than replacing an engine.
Sure.
But, you know, if it's telling you, hey, there's a clog in that should be hopefully a precursor that you can fix quickly that will keep the more valuable parts of the machine running for as long as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when you have that, you have, you know, we tried a podcast on it, like cameras in trucks for liability concerns. You know, people are out there texting on their phones, doing whatever they're doing while they're driving. And, you know, it's a company vehicle, so
we have a little bit of a target, right?
Yes.
I think from a litigation standpoint,
right.
Company vehicles, big, heavy vehicles, in particular large trucks, triaxles, I think they have a little bit of a target as, you know, being at fault regardless of the circumstances at times.
Yeah, I was going to say they're presumed
guilty as
before.
Opposed,
yes.
Yeah.
And there's also that, what's the term that the insurance company uses now for certain things? Political justice? No, what's the term that
social justice?
Social justice that is being used via insurance companies and things of that nature. So you're really kind of watching your P's and Q's on some of those things.
Right.
You know, it also reduces some of the tracking stuff, reduces theft to a point on pieces of equipment. So all that stuff is good. Now, all that stuff comes at a cost. There's always both sides of the coin, shall we say.
Right.
But the interesting thing, I'm seeing reports now about how, I see 2 reports saying that it's hard to develop people to develop in their careers. And the cool part about what we do is that we are on the job. We are communicating with each other daily. But a lot of these companies that the people aren't getting to communicate anymore because they're all going digital. They're having some struggle with the communication because that's still a viable part. Whereas our team, you know, we just had a formal meeting in here and everybody got together and actually were able to exchange ideas and talk about things and see where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, email, text. I mean, we're even on podcasts. I mean, that was a technology that I don't even know what podcasts were 5 years ago. Have all come as a way to help, but by helping, you know, there's always 2 sides of every coin.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's one thing that I feel like we as a team found out pretty quickly during COVID. Right. We fortunately we weren't shut down as long as some other places. About 5 weeks of not being allowed to be in person in the office, all of those things. But I think we figured out pretty quick that our team works together, works better when we're together.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of folks said, well, this works. You guys can go sit in an office or a house or a closet anywhere with the computer.
Yeah.
And we'll still get a job done. And for us, we said, well, we got it done and we're able to do it, but we certainly were better when we had the opportunity at least to be face to face and discuss things. And
we work from work.
Yeah.
You know, it's a saying from another podcast, but we work from work. And I think maybe it ties to, like, there's a term called for people that are not technology, like Luddites or whatever it is. But like, I have some of the different communication things on my phone, on my computer and stuff, but I'd much rather prefer to have a face-to-face, like, you know, Zoom calls for me when necessary are tolerable, but
sure. Yeah.
Try and reduce them to a minimum when possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's neat, you know, like they have some meetings and sometimes guys are in the field that need to be in the meetings and so they can get in from time to time. But yeah, I'd much rather be in person. It just is a different feel to it.
Right. Yeah. I like that it allows participation in circumstances that may not have allowed it otherwise. But I do feel like the more you have like the human interaction, you can see a person's body language, hear their intonation. Half the time you're sitting in these meetings and people don't even turn their screens on, right? And I'm like, man,
are they even there?
Yeah, like I hear
roll call.
I hear your voice, and maybe you participate every once in a while, but I just something about being able to see who you're talking to that I think changes the dynamics of conversation for sure. So.
Well, something I struggle with that I'm constantly trying to work on is you know, all of this technology has, I'm going to use the term ADD, which is used for everything nowadays, whether it's clinical diagnosis, but whatever. You know, if I'm in a meeting that doesn't really, I'm not important to, I'm just there for some reason, you know, I start jumping on my phone and like doing other things because like they need you to multitask and answer emails, respond to text messages. That's the other thing that's interesting too, is that I had a friend who had a company and he would go back at night. He'd work all day in the field and go back at night. He would check his landline for mail, voicemails, I guess. Yeah, messages.
Yeah.
And he would reply to like one a day, one at night, you know, after he got home from work. And then he'd reply to the next one the next day and just kind of slowly, like every day, like try and make 1 or 2 calls back to clients and different things like that.
Sort of like work through the list.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. I was like, in the old days when we first started, if you respond to somebody in 48 hours, that was an accepted
reasonable
time of communication. Then email started in theory for like field people. And it was by the end of the day would be in 12 hours was a good response. And now, if you're not responding within 3 minutes, people are wondering what's wrong with you.
Yeah. If you don't, especially like, I used to perceive text messages as like,
get to them when you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, a shorter version or a faster version of email.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm not going to sit there and check it all day long, but I'll set aside some time. And when I check it, then I respond to all the messages. And then next time I respond again. And it does feel like it's, there's
they put those bloody read receipts on them is what got you, I think.
There's an expectation that you're looking at it within minutes and giving a response. Yeah.
Well, even phone calls, even though we still love phone calls, like some people are like, well, you didn't answer my phone call. And it's like, well, I was doing something else. I need to focus on that. And then I will get back to you. So now like a lot of us have settings that will send a text message back, but like, I saw it, but I couldn't deal with it.
Right. In the middle of something.
Yeah. I really try to with like text message in particular. If I'm just trying to send information, I do. But if I need a communication, then I'm going to ask a question or be like, can you respond to this? Because for me, I read a lot of text messages. And if they don't really say respond, then I'm like, okay, it was just for information. They're like, well, you didn't respond. I was like, well, it really didn't say to respond. I just thought you were like giving me a heads up on something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's one thing for sure is that as consumers, we sort of demand innovation in technology. And so
until we have to use it,
until it doesn't work. And then, oh crap.
Well, another thing that's a challenge, I didn't want to, but I was thinking about is that like, there's constantly new things coming up.
Yeah.
And so we're trying, I think we've talked about this before, trying to test certain things, maybe with a small group, because you don't want to run something out and then it doesn't function. Yeah. And then, I don't know how many apps are on my phone right now, but if I really looked at, there's probably 15 of them I could delete that we tried something.
Sure.
Didn't work the way that we thought it did, or just, it's like you lose attention to something. If you're not using it on a regular basis, it just kind of falls off. And then, like you guys use those, what are they called? Writables?
Remarkable.
Remarkables.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. We used to have, I know in Dan's office, there's like a row of like his books.
The journals or ledger books.
Yeah. And now, everything's written on those Remarkables, which reduces paper, but at the same time, it's like, it's there. I mean, before it was like tracking back, trying to find which was that book in like the 3 months of this month, like finding that information from a phone number or whatever it is to it.
Now you can just look for a folder.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure you put it in the right folder.
Yeah, well, that's key.
But yeah, so I mean, we're constantly trying new things. I know sometimes people, there's like exhaustion to them. I know in like the tech world, they're so used to it, they call it sunsetting, and they have these like cute words to say when they're like firing a system or getting rid of it. But it's exhausting because you just learn something and then all of a sudden there's a switch to a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spend a lot of time trying to, if we need to make a change, making it slowly so that we're not every 2 weeks asking someone to, now you got to log into a different place.
Apps, add stuff. Yeah.
I mean, there's sometimes I'd rather keep an app that might not be 100% what we want because it's familiarity. It doesn't make versus, this is the latest and greatest. It's like, give me a little while and check back with me type of thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That has become sort of the software development process, right? A lot of like we build something quick, get it into consumers' hands, let them test it, and then
Let
figure
them
out.
pay you to figure out if
Yeah.
it works or not.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Like the whole beta testing thing feels like it. We are the beta, right?
They're like, wait, people will pay us sooner. We don't have to like do all that development up front without money. Let's go ahead and ship it
they'll
out to
buy
them.
it, and then we can add features later, and then charge them more because everything's SaaS now, and yeah, it does feel like there's sort of that end user feedback has become a big part of it,
Which is good, but
Right.
you would like it to be 80% to go, and it feels like a lot of stuff are coming out. Like the rush to market is at like 30%. Let's just get it out the door.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I agree. And what I was thinking there a few minutes ago was, do you think that like our demand for what's next or what's new it has created this situation where like there's always got to be a constant tweak or a constant change, right? Like I actually was just thinking about this with cell phones a little bit, right? Manufacturers have to have to produce a new version of the cell phone or whatever every year now, right? It's like sort of expected. Like you're next year, it's going to be the iPhone
84.
Yeah, 84. And people expect like, oh, when's the new iPhone coming out? When's the new whatever coming out? And like I think it's some of it. Is it our demand? Do you think, or is it actually better technology?
I don't think that there's. How do I say this? There hasn't been leaps and bounds in a long time.
Yeah.
At this point, it's minute details that matter to certain people, and not to everyone.
Right.
But I think because two things: one, things are not built to last the way that they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
That they make you buy new ones almost whether you want them or not. But I mean, just think about if you're Facebook, or there was a thing called MySpace before Facebook for people that don't even know what that was. If you're the hot thing, you got a window that's so small. Like I think about this with stocks, which is completely different. But like in the old days, a grandmother would buy 5 stocks from AT&T. She'd put them in a safe deposit box, and maybe when she passed away or maybe when she retired, she'd sell those stocks.
Mm-hmm.
Now the earning reports come out, weekly, quarterly. We've moved at such a pace now that, I was thinking the other day, this is about music, but
sure.
I was listening to something and I was like, that's a rewrite of something else. And I was like, is there nothing fresh? And I'm like, well, what, at some point, is there any new music that won't have already been done in some way that can be created?
Mm-hmm.
Because, we have this huge bandwidth of music. At some point, everything's going to be considered a sample because, somebody 30 years ago did that same beat pattern. But, there's only so many beat patterns that are physically possible to be made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. I think, is that it sounded like maybe that's where you were starting to go when I mentioned the equipment. Like, the equipment has felt that way a little bit, right? Like the GPS isn't necessarily new technology.
No.
It's keep sort of tweaking it, trying to make it better, more reliable, more accurate, easier to use. I do think about that in some ways, like the Ancon, or there's different versions of that now, for attachments and things like that. But nothing like crazy,
Earth shattering.
Nothing earth shattering. There's a lot of talk right now about automated equipment, whether or not it could get to a place where it can replace some of the things that humans do or shouldn't do, for that matter, right? But I think some of it comes from our need or desire for there always to be something new. I don't know.
So the question is that our need, or is that become our expectation? Conditioned to do that.
Great point. Great
I remember when I got my first iPhone, for a while I was what they call an early adopter, just because I was like, I wanted the newest toys. And so I had one, and I was like, oh my goodness, an iPhone, and what does it do? Because at that point, that wasn't like a thing.
Yeah.
And now it's so different,
And I think that piece of it might be generational a little bit. We talked about that the other day. I forget what they call it, a Zennial, maybe. I forget.
Is that the early millennials? Is that what that's considered?
Well, supposedly, and I think people just make up these things to feel better about themselves, right? but supposedly there's like a window, a couple of years between
Gen Z and
Gen X and millennial, where like we're early adopters to technology, even though we didn't really grow up with it. And it's just some like behavioral patterns that are more closely aligned with Gen X, even though we have some character traits of millennials. Yeah.
Well, I won't even want to count the amount of money that I spent on things as early adopter, or, I remember one of my first trucks, work trucks, I bought it. At that point, Ford trucks had a big radio. Like, it was not a thin like one. It was like almost more like a square. Mm-hmm. And I wanted a GPS system for being able to drive, and like, because I did a lot of different addresses at that point.
Yeah, the navigation.
The navigation system. Yeah, and I spent like $2,500 back then to put a navigation system into this truck.
Right.
Now every truck basically comes with it, except for like very few, and you have it on your phone. So I don't even want navigation in my vehicle anymore. I don't even turn it on in my vehicle because I have it in my phone, so I don't even need it.
Yeah, I remember those. The funny part about it was they didn't keep up with the
roads.
Right. Yeah,
well, because they were on CDs, right. So
it was all CDs. Yeah, it's so funny because like the CD had to get changed. Obviously, they didn't come up with a new CD every month. It was every couple of years. Yeah. And by then, man, if you had like a 3-year-old CD for your navigation,
you're driving into a river somewhere.
Yeah, I did. That road has way different. Yeah, and that's really funny.
My wife used to have this job, and so they called me Ford. It was funny, but she, like, you said no roads. You're like, oh, okay, that road. And now you just hop in your GPS and go where you're going.
Yeah.
And so she'd call me. So one year for Christmas, I bought her what used to be a thing called TomTom, which was basically a GPS. It wasn't in the vehicle, but it was like a little screen you hooked up.
Yep.
And one of the first times she used it, I was like, oh, how'd it go? I hate this thing. What happened? She's like, I was going up the highway, and every exit, it would take me off the exit and then get me back on the other side.
What?
So it was something about like it was a setting in there saying to like avoid something, but I guess every time you got off the highway, it still realized that the highway was the fastest route. And so it would like jump you down and go back up the other side. So it was a setting in there.
Trying to avoid highways, but it was still the fastest route.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So it's so humorous, and it's like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, and they didn't have traffic on them.
Right.
They were just like, this is the route. Like there was no,
this
there's
is
15 minutes slowdown.
Direct route, not it's the fastest route. It's
yeah. So the history. I mean, I figure in 20 years we'll look back and be like, oh, the next 20 years is a huge jump forward. But it feels like the last 20 years has been a significant jump in making, as you said, like bringing some of this stuff that's been around for a while, but to the consumers.
Right.
But I'll be curious to see what that next, like,
what's
minor improvements. I mean, like the last iPhone to this iPhone, the camera got better. Sure. I'm not a big picture taker, so to me, it's is what it is. Or the processor got faster. I don't play video games on it, so it doesn't affect me either.
Right.
But like, what are the big changes going to be that will be like, this is a drastic change, not just a minor improvement?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. We'll have to do this one again in 10 years.
Man. We won't even be talking to speakers, will we?
We'll just be using AI to have the conversation for us.
It'll be having the conversation to like digitally modulate our voices and be like, we're like, wow, that was a really good one. We weren't there.
Yeah, ChatGPT will write the script. So, All right, that's probably enough for this episode. But thanks for joining us, folks.
Shows how old we are.
I said this earlier. I was like, folks who are like middle aged. I'm like, oh crap, I think we're middle aged. So
you think when you were young, you're like, oh man, by the time you're 40, you're like really old, and then you're like, you're in the 40s, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like mentally, I don't feel that old. You're like 60, that's old.
Yeah, I won't be old for a while. Yeah.
It's all relative.
Thanks for joining us, folks. Hope you come back for another episode.